When everyone knows beauty is beautiful, there is already ugliness. When everyone knows good as goodness, there is already evil. To be or not to be arise mutually. Difficult and easy are mutually realized. Long and short are mutually contrasted. High and low are mutually posited. Before and after are mutually sequenced. In this poem by Lao Tzu, he speaks of Hashing Shang, this inseparability symbolized by the two hemispheres that make up the yang and yin. Here one cannot exist without the other. Though the principles are tension, they are not flatly opposed. They blend together, invading each other's territory to the very center. There is no resolution. Each establishes itself deep within the other, then tapers off to form the all-embracing circle, the symbol of unity. This is the Tao, the way. One cannot do without the other. They both complement and counterbalance each other. The Taoist principles of yang and yin are the basis of Oriental philosophy and the foundation of the martial arts. As I position myself to begin an advanced black belt form, my left hand is placed over the right. 25 years ago, this would have no meaning to a Westerner. Now, for the ever-increasing number of martial arts practitioners, it stands for peace, justice, courtesy, and self-control. It is a sign of respect and is called the universal symbol, the covered fist. Its place in the martial arts seems almost ironic, this symbol of benevolence, so important among the most deadly fighting arts. As my hand moves upward, straight, with the palms facing the heavens, an experienced martial artist sees the yang. The yang is the male, thus my hands trace the figure of the male. They see its symbolic identities: good, active, positive, light, summer, life, the firm, the strong, rising, and the heavens. As my hands reach their most upward point of motion, they form a triangle, which I now focus my eyes through, symbolically reaching out for universal harmony. The triangle itself symbolizes the three philosophical elements of the martial arts: the physical, mental, and spiritual beings within us. It represents the ultimate goal of unity, harmony, these three states of being. As my hands begin their journey downward, the outline of the female, the yin, here evil, passive, negative, dark, winter, death, yielding, weakness, falling, and the earth are all symbolically represented. Only then is the actual form begun. As I demonstrate the form, the movements flow together as do the yang and yin. They do not move as two enemies against one another, but like two lovers, not struggling, but embracing. One will never prevail against the other. The martial arts were started 2,000 years ago as a weaponless form of self-defense. The Orient at that time was plagued by marauding bandits, bands of hostile soldiers, and violence was a way of life. How close to the 20th century were those days? Well, we still have war, gangs, assault, daily murders, and violence is still all around us. Perhaps this accounts for the success of the Oriental fighting arts in the West. In any case, the experienced martial artist has a considerable edge over those who might tangle with him. He is trained to kill, yet presumably has the self-control to use it when only necessary. This project on nonverbal communication in the martial arts is for that person. He already has a proficiency in his skill. He has learned how and what to do and when to do it. I plan to take nothing away of his skill, but strive only to add on to his proficiency. Oh, east is east, and west is west, and never the twain shall meet, till earth and sky stand presently at God's great judgment seat.
Yeah, good time.
Hey! See, you know, good night here. Do some disco. Come on. Turkey? I'll get him on. I'll give it what? Come on, man. We got it down already.
Where you going? You ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. This guy ain't got nothing. See ya.
This is our turf, man. You see the signs? Huh?
You versus me. In this dramatization, you guys attacked me, and I did what? What's the first thing I did? Okay, I jumped in a fighting stance. Now, a lot of instructors tell us this is the important thing to do. As soon as someone assails you, attacks you, fall into a fighting stance. Okay, now, this lessens your effect as a fighter. Okay, in other words, when I fall into my fighting stance here, through my nonverbal communications, I've given away the fact that I'm a fighter. Okay, for one, I've key off loud. That's a sign definitely these martial artists. Okay, a boxer would key off, right? Okay, now, the second thing I did is I went right back into with my foot, my fighting stance, and my hands were up. Again, I'm a karate man. So you guys knew that you either rushed me at the
feet, it lessened my influence on you as a fighter. Okay, so as assailants, you can group together, and my single most important skill, that of surprise, was totally taken away. Okay? What you have seen in that last dramatization was a series of nonverbal cues, not used effectively as a fighter. Okay? As I stepped back into my fighting stance at Kiosk, I gave away the fact that I was indeed a martial artist. I took away my skill, my effectiveness in surprising the opponent. Okay? The next dramatization that I will now do with my students, I will show you how to use these nonverbal cues to increase your potential as a martial artist, not reduce or diminish your fighting skill. Excuse me. What we have a tendency to do in the martial arts is we forget sometimes that we're working out of traditional stances, and sometimes these aren't practical in a street situation. What I'd like to show you now is my own development in a casual fighting stance. A casual stance that can be used just as effectively in a fighting situation. First, I'd like to go over the nonverbal cues that martial artists will exhibit in aggressive encounter. You guys, fighting stance? Okay, here we have the traditional fighting stance. Okay, first we have eye contact. And my subjects before, when I interviewed them, judged this to be the most important nonverbal cue. The eyes are locked together. There's that fierceness in the eyes. One tries to capture the soul of his opponent with his eyes. An intensive glare. Okay? The second nonverbal cue is the hand positioning. The hands are positioned in order to protect the body. Again, this gives them away as a martial artist. The foot positioning. Generally speaking, the back leg is bent, the front leg is bent. The weight is normally on the back leg. His body is facing so it's angled away from the opponent. It's harder for him to strike a vulnerable area. And you'll note the self-control, that's also important. These guys are not talking, the gentlemen are just staring, poised, ready to fight. Okay, excuse me. Then, would this not be a more practical stance? In a street situation, to merely just pivot the body, okay, at a slight angle. It could be a fighting stance, it could be a casual stance. The hands are not up. The hands are placed about belt level, okay? This would protect the groin in an aggressive encounter here. Okay, there's no way he's going to get to your groin with some strike or some punch. The hands are still lightly over the top, so you can strike as fast with the back fist. The legs are still bent enough to where your stance would be useful. If I'm here, I can lift my body up and strike. You can fight just as well out of this stance. Again, my body is at enough angle so if you punched or struck, my body would not absorb the punch. Still, the eye contact is maintained in this particular stance. Okay, as I mentioned before, eye contact was the most important nonverbal cue. Maintaining eye contact is crucially important in a fighting situation. However, sometimes it can be manipulated to disguise or to hide a move and make it more effective. For example, as I fight. Okay, in this case, the eyes were used to divert the opponent's attention. In other words, I wasn't staring at the opponent. I wasn't staring into his eyes. They had no indication of what my next movement would be. In this case, and in the next example, eye contact was used to the fighter's benefit. Okay, as I mentioned before, the eyes can be used against the opponent. All right, what we will do now is take a weapon, in this case a knife, and in the second case, a pair of keys. And we're going to divert the opponent's attention by having them focus. In other words, diverting their eyes to the weapon and taking it away from the technique that you're going to throw. For example. In Miss Gibson's right hand, she has a set of keys. This is going to be used to divert the eyes, again, away from the situation. Instead of watching her legs or another striking armament, she's going to use her hand and divert his attention. One of the most useful tools to a martial artist along the lines of nonverbal communication is periphery. Okay, in other words, if If I'm standing in this stance here, I can see my two opponents to the side using the corners of my eyes. One is here, and one is here. I don't have to turn to look to see where they are and waste time and waste motion. The next demonstration will prove and enhance what I have to say about this. Go. We've just seen a brief demonstration of many of the aspects that we can attach to nonverbal communications in the martial arts. What I've tried to do is just show you a few of the many, many, many things that we can go over in this field. It's a new field. We can train our students to be more sensitive to their nonverbal communication cues. We can enhance their fighting skill and make them more effective fighters on the street, and that's where it really counts.
Tenet of Taekwondo, courtesy, J.E., justice, Jong-yi, perseverance, in self-control, Koki, fighting spirit, Fuji.